Do we have any public comment? Step up and state your name. I already know who you are, Jeanne.
Hi, Jeanne Gribbin. I'm not here arguing about having a pro tem. I agree. Budget-wise, this would be a great idea. I have nothing personal against Jim Miller. I've never had any dealings with him, and I hope not to ever. I have a problem with Jim Miller, though. Let me read a little bit that I saw on the e-board. Now, normally I don't put any credence in people that refuse to use their real name, but because this has been brought up so many times, let me read it. The store owners and the real locals that care about this county and Virginia City know that Jim bent the Constitution a bit, but he did get many of the druggers and tweakers out of town. There's so much wrong with that. He was in an elected position. He's elected to uphold the law of the land, which is the Constitution. He bent it the way he wanted it bent. I don't think I want somebody who bends the highest law in the land in an appointed position. I think being retired or even an unemployed person would be a better pro tem than Jim Miller. I don't want anybody who bends the Constitution to read the way they want it to read to be in any kind of position in the law. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeanne.
We agree. We don't want anybody to either.
Pat?
Dear Commissioners, first of all, let me premise this by saying...
State your full name.
My name is Patrick Flanagan, and I live at 2170 Cartwright in the Virginia City Highlands,
Thank you.
Storey County. Let me preface this by saying that I like Jim Miller as my neighbor and generally is a good person. However, he was not the best sheriff and will also not be a good justice of the Peace Pro Tem. Oh yes, he will try his best, but that just isn't good enough for our local government. We deserve better and have the talent here to do better. Let me explain why I feel this way. First, Jim Miller was going to apply for the Justice of the Peace position and decided not to. He then suggested to the now Judge McGuffey that he should run for office. As we know, McGuffey got the position. During this process, of which I was one applicant, we all had to go before a review committee who graded all the applicants. Sheriff Miller was on this committee. At the time, I felt this was bordering on a conflict of interest, but put that to the side as he was no longer running for the office. Now, after the fact, McGuffey picked Miller as Justice of the Peace Pro Tem. This has become inappropriate and smacks of political payoff, cronyism, and use of public position for personal gain. Oh yes, you can disagree and refute this. However, you cannot summarily dispense with this, as the very action symptomizes the appearance of such charges. This does nothing to instill confidence in the community and now verges on unethical conduct by public officials. All who work as public servants have a major responsibility to build trust within the community, not to degrade it. This is clearly stated in the NRS statutes on the minimum standards of ethics by public officials. And you can give good reasons and excuses to justify this, but I respond that you have undermined the voters' confidence just by appearance. I remind you of Cicero's words of warning: just because laws are passed does not make them just. Instead of models for us to admire, you undermine the basic trust in our government by inappropriate actions. We rightfully hold you all to a higher standard and expect that you strive for that, rather than lowering the bar and the quality of our leadership. To right or wrong, you must reject the application of Sheriff Miller for Justice of the Peace Pro Tem. To ignore and let stand only adds to mistrust in the community and now calls into question integrity and ethics. Second, the application for the Justice of the Peace position was very, I'm going to skip this because Judge McGuffey said that they will put Sheriff Miller through the same process, and this relates to that's kind of unfair. So I'm going to skip that part. Finally, fourth, I'm going to skip the next part too because that's related to that. Fourth, let us look at Sheriff Miller's history in practicing law as sheriff. In the case against the Delta gift shop, his very loose interpretation of probable cause, and I refer to Judge McGuffey's mention of probable cause just minutes ago, it led to an improper search and seizure, the wrongful arrest of an innocent bystander, confiscation of private property, wrongful destruction of such property, and a refusal to reimburse for losses that a citizen incurred, all due to his definition of probable cause. One of the major issues for a justice of the peace is to decide an admission of evidence based upon probable cause and legal searches. Clearly, Sheriff Miller's definition is heavily slanted in favor of police enforcement rather than to the protections of citizens and their right to a fair trial and presumed innocence. I won't debate the propriety of Sheriff Miller's definition, but I will strongly debate that this is not the definition which a judge should be using. In fact, this is why there is separation in our justice system between the judge and enforcement. It is clear that a fine line of separation of duties and responsibilities exists between the sheriff and the judge in order to protect our constitutional minimum of rights and freedoms. I do not want Judge Miller presiding over me or any other voter in our county knowing full well that he does not have a clear belief in a reasonable adherence to the protections under the law. I can speak from this from first-hand experience. This is not from hearsay. There's been, I'm going to shorten this up in the interest of time, there's been other similar cases like this, but I've gotten those evidences mostly from hearsay, and I don't feel, I mean, I believe that the people told me the truth, but I don't know all the extenuating facts. But there have been other instances without reasonable probable cause that unreasonable searches were made. Okay, and I'll leave the rest. I made copies. I don't want to go into, I think I hit the main points, and Mr. McGuffey also satisfied some of the others. So, can I give this to, she's a clerk or a secretary? In the interest of time. And I think Judge McGuffey, I have every bit of confidence in the new judge, but I just have a problem with Sheriff Miller. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.